Hey VC, it's Joel coming at you from Planet 13, and this is my contest entry to Dylan the Record Spinner's 1000 Spins contest. So Dylan recently hit 1000 subscribers, and I think it is incredibly well deserved. And if you haven't watched Dylan's channel, I'll leave a link below. I suggest you check it out. Dylan is 22, but he's got such a knowledge about all these bands, and it's really exciting to watch someone so young talk about these bands. And he's got a huge record album collection, but he knows every album he owns inside and out. He doesn't just collect, he absorbs, and it's just awesome to see and hear and watch. And he likes a lot of bands that I like, and I assume if you're watching me, you like as well. So he likes Bowie, Alice Cooper, Black Sabbath, Kiss. The list goes on and on. Pink Floyd. And for his contest, he is giving away the not Black Sabbath, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon immersion box set. So it's a bunch of CDs and DVDs, and I thought I'd have a bit of fun with his contest and not just show vinyl, but show DVDs, CDs, cassettes of my top 1000 spins. So as Dylan would say, enough of the chit chat. Let's get to the music. My first album is Slaughter. Stick It To Ya. This is their debut album. Slaughter originally got their start with essentially the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. Vinnie's second album, I believe. Mark Slaughter and Dana Strum were the backing musicians. And I guess they had trouble with Vinnie Vincent, because who doesn't? And Vinnie was kind of bad-mouthing him in the press, so they were unhappy. So they went on to form their own band with Mark Slaughter singing, and he's got a very distinct high voice, and Dana Strum doing lead guitar. So, the big hit on here was Fly to the Angels. That was popular. Up All Night was also great. But I just love every track on here. I saw them opening for Kiss on the Hot in the Shade tour, and I guess, they had a lot to talk about with Vinnie Vincent, with Eric Carr and Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley during that tour, because, they had that in common. So yeah, great cassette. Probably not on anyone's top 10 list except my top 5, top 1000 spin albums. Next album I'm going to show, I was 16 when I bought this, and it just kind of exposed me to a new world. It is White Zombie's Devil Music La Sexorcisto, Volume 1, Devil Music. Great album. Big hit on here was Thunder Kiss 65. Rob Zombie says he doesn't play White Zombie albums anymore, or songs anymore live, but I think he still plays Thunder Kiss 65. Everyone loves that tune. And then Black Sunshine is another big hit of his off this. Has Iggy Pop doing a vocal introduction. Great album overall. It's not for everyone. It's got a groove to it. It's just, you pop it in, and great driving album. You just kind of groove. You sit back, you groove, you relax. Colorful as well. Rob Zombie does a lot of artwork in this. I can't show it all because there's like kind of cartoon nudity in it, but yeah, very colorful, hand drawn graphics and text, just very cartoonic, comic booky. Great album. I like it. Next album I'm going to show is Spinal Tap. So I don't have the actual soundtrack to this anymore. I had it on cassette at one point. Never had it on CD. I'd like to acquire it on CD, but I know Spinal Tap just recently settled a lawsuit with Universal Music, and both parties came out completely happy, and it was a painless lawsuit. You usually hear about lawsuits and there's a lot of fighting, but they agreed to great terms, and I think they're planning on re-releasing Spinal Tap's catalog on vinyl. Spinal Tap, of course, is a parody band, but they do it so well that everyone thinks they're kind of real. I've worn Spinal Tap shirts to concerts, and people were like, who's Spinal Tap? Because they think it was a real band, and they kind of mock me for wearing a Spinal Tap shirt, because they're like, that's a like a lame band name. Like, what the heck? And you're just kind of like laughing in your head, because you're like, well, that's the point, I guess. So Spinal Tap, their actual soundtrack album has a lot of, it tracks the progression of the band from their like Beatles roots to their heavy metal sound in the 80s. And so their 60 songs are very Beatle-esque or Rolling Stone-esque, 60-ish sounding, or Bowie, very early Bowie-ish. And then they get into the sleazy heavy metal songs later on, like oh, like I can't say it because there's swearing in it, but Big Bottom, I guess. There's a song there for you. That's kind of heavy metalish. And Stone Edge, where it's kind of like Dio-ish or Ozzy Osbourne-ish, where they have like midgets dancing around a stone hedge that was 6 inches tall instead of 6 feet tall. Great movie too, by the way. Highly recommend it. I've also seen Spinal Tap live twice. They played Canada Day in 1990, and they played 3 provinces, and that was super cool. And then I saw them in the 2000s, where they did like an acoustic tour. And yeah, just not only are they great comedians, they're great musicians as well. Fourth album up is Kiss's Alive 3. Not my favorite Kiss album, but it is an album I've spun a lot and will continue to spin. So this kind of, I was already a big fan of Kiss's Revenge at the time when this came out. And then this kind of introduced me to Kiss's, I knew their classic stuff from like Alive and Alive 2 and Destroyer and all that. Back in the day, like albums were kind of pricey. I made, when I was 13 to 16, I made $5 an hour, and a cassette could cost you up to $20 and a CD could cost you up to 30. So, if you worked an 8-hour shift, that kind of covered your one album that you could buy. So you had to buy your albums wisely, and you didn't want to take risks on albums by Kiss that you were just kind of unfamiliar with because they're $30. And you didn't have the internet. You didn't have Wikipedia. You couldn't really reference reviews up until a certain point. So, I became familiar with the song Creatures of the Night through this album, which, I just love. It's one of my favorite Kiss songs. And, I never heard that before. And so you get a good cross mix on here of 80s, 70s, and 90s Kiss. I remember when I bought this album, I bought it right before I was seeing David Copperfield live. And I remember buying this album, and we had a couple hours to kill before the show, so we just drove around in an old Mustang around the city of Hamilton before the show and just listened to this, and then we watched David Copperfield, and it was just a fantastic day in general. I think we just turned 16, so we were pretty young at the time, and it was just, we're just eating fast food. Me and my buddy were just, had a great time in town. So, yeah. Fourth favorite spin. A lot of nostalgia behind that. And then my last album, it is Alice Cooper's Love It to Death. This is my favorite Alice Cooper album. It's not my first Alice Cooper album. My first Cooper album was Trash, and then I picked up this, at least for studio. I think my first was actually Greatest Hits, Trash, and then Love It to Death. And my brothers never had this, but I recognized a lot of songs off the Greatest Hits album on here, like I'm 18 and Is It My Body. And I also had Alice Cooper's Prime Cuts on VHS, and there was a song on there called The Ballad of Dwight Fry, and there's another song called Black Juju, and those songs fascinated me, and those two are on this. I just think this is a perfect album. The other albums before I showed are probably not on anyone's top 10 album list ever, but this is on a lot of people's top 10 lists, particularly Alice Cooper fans. So fantastic album overall. So that is my contest entry. Again, please take a look at Dylan's channel. I guarantee you will love it. And until next time, take care.